Welcome to the city of Aswan in southern Egypt. The city is one of the smaller cities along the Nile, and it is quite beautiful with a tropical-like feel. It was an important trade hub connecting Egypt to the rest of Africa via Nubia. It was a major source of granite, basalt, and sandstone that was used for temples and obelisks across Egypt. Many famous Egyptian temples and obelisks from around the world were made from granite in Aswan. Tourism is thriving here with many Nile riverboat cruises either starting or ending here, traveling both south to Abu Simbel or north to Luxor. In this video, I'll be sharing with you many fantastic sights to see in the area. Let me know in the comments which is your favorite. Good morning from Aswan, and we are at the Aswan High Dam. Now, this was built in the 1950s by President Nasser, and this is what created Lake Nasser. It also displaced tens of thousands of Nubians, and we're going to learn more about that when we go to the Nubian Museum this afternoon. They were able to save 22 monuments, but there were hundreds of sandstone monuments that were lost under the lake. But this was a massive engineering project to save the Nile from flooding. And if this dam were ever to break, all of Egypt's cities up to Alexandria would flood in 24 hours. So this is holding back a tremendous amount of water. Hi, cutie. Hi. What a cute little puppy. What a cute little puppy. Oh my gosh, there are lots of cute puppies here at the High Dam. Hi, boo-boo. Well, hello. Maybe these are the damn dogs. There's another one. All right, so you can see all the concrete. Now, they said the amount of concrete used here could build several pyramids. I forget the number now. It doesn't look as grand as like the Hoover Dam, but I believe it's deceiving. Now we're going to cross and get a view of the lake and see what kind of educational posters they have over here. They did tell us that this is guarded by the military, not the police. And so we do have to be careful how we film, and they do not want any zoom lenses here. Here are images of the construction. All right, I'm going to try to cross the street. And we've been looking at the lake for the last several days. If you're interested in our cruise on Lake Nasser, you can check out my video that was posted just prior to this one. There'll be a link in the description. And the beautiful Lake Nasser. Unfortunately, the Nubians had to move out of the area. They called it the Nubian Exodus, and we'll learn more about that this afternoon. Here it is. The High Dam volume equals 17 times the Great Giza Pyramid. And we got a history of it, and it ended up being primarily funded by the Soviets, I believe. And while they were looking for funding, there was a conflict that I can get into in a minute about the history. $43 million cubic meters of rock that filled this dam. Now I wonder how this compares to the Hoover Dam. But here's some pictures of construction. It said that at the time this dam was needed, the Egyptians did not have the technology necessary to build this, so this is why they looked for help from other governments. Beautiful. Olivia's here. All right, the River Nile. Now I'm guessing that we are just looking maybe at one section of the dam, but the dam goes all the way across. That would explain why it's not quite as dramatic from a single vantage point. So next on the agenda today is the Philae temple, that I believe was also relocated from its original location, and the unfinished obelisk. Here we are at the Temple of Philae, and this is on an island, and it is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful temple. A lot of the local people take their holiday here on the water with the beautiful boulders and overlooking the gorgeous temple. They said nowadays they have a lot of Nubian style homes that they're building on the water for people to take their holiday near the temple. It's a gorgeous place, and even our tour guide, who's a local, showed us the place that he's going to rent for his holiday on this area. So this is a gorgeous place. This temple was another one of the temples that were rescued when Lake Nasser was built. So that's interesting. We're going to learn more about this in just a minute. The first thing that was pointed out here was this black marking that was noticeable on all the columns. That was left here from the years between 1974 and 1981, when the temple was partially submerged by the rising waters after the dam was constructed. This is another one of those amazing structures that was moved and saved from the ultimate destruction. The Philae temple was one of the most important religious centers in ancient Egypt. It's dedicated to Isis, who's the goddess of magic, motherhood, and fertility. It was built during the Ptolemaic and Roman periods between like 280 and 300, and by the 1st century BC, the cult of Isis had become the most powerful in Egypt, and this island sanctuary was revered as the country's holiest site, drawing pilgrims from across the ancient world. This temple is best visited with an educated guide who can tell you so many things about the stories, the inscriptions, and the myths surrounding this temple. So here we learned about the legend of Isis and Osiris. Lots of interesting history here. And he did talk about how the Egyptians were very upset when they started using Isis as the acronym to describe the Islamic State, that's the terror group, versus the goddess Isis that they have here in Egypt. This architecture follows a classical Egyptian temple layout. You start in a central court, then you go through the grand pylons with incredible inscriptions. Into the first hall, and finally approaching the sanctuary in the back. There were so many fascinating things to see inside this temple, one of which of particular historical significance was the last known hieroglyphic inscription carved by a priest in 394. On one side of the temple, you can find a Nileometer. This was an ingenious system that was used to measure the Nile's annual flood levels and predict the following season's agricultural yield. Next to the Nileometer, you'll find the Gate of Hadrian. On the east side, you can find the beautiful Temple of Hathor, and it is so gorgeous with these flowery-like features on the columns and the way it overlooks the water. It's quite remarkable. One other thing worth noting is you may notice on some of these major carvings that the figures are etched away. And that happened when Christianity took over. The Christians ended up coming in and taking over this temple. They wanted to erase and deface the figures of the god and goddesses. They apparently have a nice restroom and cafeteria here where I'm going to meet up with the rest of my group. But this is a fantastic stop here in Aswan. We're now visiting the unfinished obelisk. This was constructed under Queen Hatshepsut, and she tried to build the largest obelisk in the world. And when they were in the process of making it, there was a natural crack in the granite, so they had to stop. So by studying this unfinished obelisk, they learned a lot about exactly how the obelisks were made, but they are still unclear how the obelisks were erected and positioned. There's some theories, but none have been proven yet. So we'll head up to the top. So I laugh because our tour guide calls it a shopping arcade that they make you go through to finish. And he stated that someone on a tour did get ripped off by one of the first spice shops in this shopping arcade, paid something crazy like $400 US for dust, something that wasn't a spice. So be cautious, but he did say that near the end of the shopping arcade, there's a very respectable bookstore, and they also have postcards and stamps and no haggling. This is the granite that's very slippery. So all these obelisks were made from a solid piece of stone. They were cut out of the stone. All in one piece. Yeah, that's great. Is it? Okay, sure. This obelisk is 42 meters long. It weighs over 11 tons. It's really interesting to think about how they plan to move it into place. And I just wonder where it was going to be displayed. I love listening to all these alternate theories about some of these ancient structures in Egypt, one of which is that obelisks could conduct energy, or were somehow related to a worldwide energy system. It's pretty fascinating. It's even hotter here than you think because the sun reflects off that rock, and it is shiny and slippery and hot, hot, hot. So here comes the shopping arcade here in Aswan. The bazaar. I believe this first one, Isa Spice, is where that incident happened. $1.
You can see here.
They're not as aggressive here as we saw in Abu Simbel.
Look at this weaving here. Feast your eyes.
Feast your eyes, he said.
Just look spices. We have the real saffron though.
Okay.
We don't cook some saffron.
No. We're off on the next adventure to the Nubian Museum. This is a very lively area here where the cruise ships are here in Aswan. They said something like 300 cruise ships are all parked along here. They line them up. I don't think they're all here right now, but that's how much they can take here. There's not a lot of traffic here at the Nubian Museum, but this is really a gem. It's dedicated to the people that lost their home with Lake Nasser. It was established in 1997 in cooperation with UNESCO. It's a reminder of what's lost beneath Lake Nasser. There's beautiful displays with huge halls that takes you all the way back from 4500 BC to the present day. It's interesting to see the 6,000-year-old painted pottery bowls that look so similar to what you see at Native American sites here in the Southwest. Next, I'm going to recommend strolling the promenade by the Nile at sunset. It is so beautiful, and if you get a chance to take a felucca ride, that would be even better. Now, we took about a 15-minute walk down this promenade as we were looking for the local market. It's called Sharia Souq, and it's one of the quieter markets in Egypt that you can visit. I think I'm going to release a separate video where I show you the entire adventure going through this area, but I can tell you that they had a lot of great offerings. I like some of the local food stores and the spice shops. It was a little bit tricky to find, so you may want to take a minute to check it out on the map before you venture out, and just note that it's just kind of behind the Aswan Government Building, near the train station. Now, here are several things that we didn't get to do that I wish we could have done, so if you're planning your trip, I do recommend you try to fit these in. Aswan sits on the first cataract of the Nile, so there's lots of islands in the water in this area. It's so beautiful. I always love a good botanical gardens, and so I'm sure this one is pretty amazing. One is the Aswan Botanical Gardens. I always love botanical gardens, and this one looks amazing. This whole area by the Nile was so lush and beautiful. I'm sure it's awesome. Next, I would try to spend some time or maybe a night at the Nubian Village on the west side of the Nile. The architecture and the vibrant colors, it looks like such an amazing place to stay with such nice people. The tombs of the nobles also sparked my interest. It's also on the west side of the Nile. Now, there are several areas like this also in Luxor with such an interesting way to bury these people in the hillside. Thanks so much for watching, and if you've been to Aswan, let me know what I've missed. For more on my Egypt series, you may want to check out these videos. Thanks for watching.